Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market, where every day we discuss everything to do with the modern market, that is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to make some and or ideally a lot of money on the internet. Loaded up for discussion today, we have Tether announcing third quarter profit of $2.5 billion. Legendary's got a deeper breakdown of the Tether profits and what's going on over there. Citrea raises $14 million at Series A to expand Bitcoin from digital gold to an active programmable asset. We've been speaking about that a lot today. Got some more context for you and why that's important. And Time.Fun migrates from Base to Solana, sparking further discussion of the winning culture on Solana versus whatever culture there is on ETH, where people are leaving. Big discussion there to have. We've also got the latest on price action on crypto and NFTs, plus an awesome conversation with FOMO Boys, the CEO of Infinity Labs and head of Web3 at Michelin, and Julie, who is leading on the Web3 strategy internally at Michelin, which is, of course, the world-famous brand specializing in Web3 and VIP race events, fine food experiences, and unique collectibles. So we're very much looking forward to discussing that in just a bit. Today, we've got Legendary in the co-host seat. We're ready to get into it. But just before we do, friends, just a reminder that nothing that we say here is financial advice, because this market is very, very risky, and we unfortunately don't know anything for sure. So please do proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Legendary, it is Friday. Finally, it is the 1st of November. How are you doing in this new month ahead?
GM, doing pretty well. Actually had a great evening. It's the same story that I shared yesterday. My favorite chart pattern, the Marc Andreessen repost on the same project happened again, but 2 reposts within the same day. So that meant quite some positive price action for one of my largest holdings, which held up well overnight. So if I have a look at Photon on my left-hand screen, it still looks good. And that's a great way to start the weekend.
Very good way to start the weekend. The double repost from Marc Andreessen sounds pretty good. What's the when you're running through the probabilities there, how much better can it get? Are you still holding? Are you still holding these coins after the double repost? How can it get any better?
I took some profits because I put an ungodly amount of Solana in that. How can it get any better? By launching the AI product that they want to launch, that they've been working for 14 years on, by having a podcast with Marc Andreessen, by having Marc Andreessen come on the modern market and talk about that project specifically. There's many levels to this.
Many levels. We are doing more. Like, just in case people haven't noticed, one of our biggest strategies moving forward as we close the year and into next year will be to have more guests on. We do think it's fun and interesting to bring some of the best people in the space on to speak about their strategy and the way they're thinking about not only the market, but also building. I think that's one of the things we're focused on more than ever now. Not just about price and speculation, it's about the people who are literally building the future of products on crypto rails, but also the crypto rails themselves. So I think those two things go hand in hand, and we will be having more conversations with the best people in the space in order to do that. So we hope you're here for that and you find that interesting. Look, we've got a packed show today, really interesting conversations coming up with Michelin as well. So let's get straight into it. Let's start with the price action and the headlines from the snapshot, which is pinned up top, starting with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is down around 3% to 70K. We've got ETH down almost 5%, around 4.5% to 2.5, giving up a lot of the gains we saw in the last few days. Solana is also down 4% to $168. On the meme side of things, Doge is down 6% today. Pepe's down 4%. WIF's down almost 10%. Popcat's down 4% as well. We've got MOG down almost 9%. So a lot of red on the meme coin side, probably not unsurprising given how much of a run up they've had pretty recently. Getting into the headlines themselves, we've got Tether announcing the third quarter profit of $2.5 billion. Wu Blockchain reported that its third quarter profit was around that number, 2.5 billion. The cumulative profit in the first 9 months reached $7.7 billion, and the total assets reached $134.4 billion, all of which were record highs. Tether holds $102.5 billion in US Treasury bonds, ranking among the top 18 holders in the world. Remember, we've reported on that before. They're right up there with like some of the biggest countries in the world as US Treasury bond holders. We've got more of a deep dive from Legendary on that in a bit. Number 2, Citrea raises $14 million Series A to expand Bitcoin from digital gold to an active programmable asset. This is the new, this is backed by Peter Thiel's Founders Fund. We've seen them become more and more active in the last few days and weeks. Also, Balaji as a notable angel. Eric Voorhees, the prominent Bitcoiner, also a notable angel in that too. And Mert from Helios and key Solana KOL as well. Time.Fun migrates from Base to Solana, sparking further discussion of the winning culture on Solana. There's a long thread written by the founder on why he felt Solana has the winning culture at the moment. He said the vibes on Solana and ETH couldn't be more different. Solana encapsulates what the real world is like. Degens, speculators, your average person, whereas ETH feels like a bunch of philosophers looking down on the average person. Strong words. We're going to discuss that in a little bit later. Some notable sales from around the space. Boo Bear, Chain selling for 13.31 ETH. 2 Dmitry Cherniak ringers selling for 10.75 ETH. I like those ones in particular. That's what's going on in the crypto market and the headlines. Legendary, so we take a look at the NFT market, see what's going on there.
Absolutely, yeah. NFT market looks pretty boring today, to be quite frank with you. Bored Apes flat 11.34 ETH. Pudgy Penguins essentially flat 8.68 ETH for them. Azuki's doing the opposite thing, not acting like a stable coin, being down 2.7%, 4.75 ETH floor for them. The ladies essentially flat, 4.6 ETH floor for them. Another collection that I wanted to pick out is one that we haven't touched on in a while. I was quite curious to see what happened with it. Is it still alive? Did it die? And surprisingly, it is still alive. It's the egg collection that we talked about maybe a month ago when CryptoKitties launched that NFT collection. Did shoot up back then to, I think, 0.2, 0.3 ETH floor from what was an almost free mint. But it's still holding up. It's basically back then already had corrected down to the 0.12-ish to 0.15-ish floor price level. And it's holding that up pretty well. Still sees volume. 14 ETH is up 10%, still at this 0.125 ETH floor. So that's interesting to see that it didn't go straight to zero, but it's still up there.
Pretty interesting stuff. Nice summary on the NFT market side. Legendary, thanks for that. In terms of the Web3 roundup, some other news that you want to know. Some of these are pretty big as well. Ethereum gaming platform Immutable receives an SEC Wells notice, another one. So this is now Coinbase, Consensus, a bunch of other people too. Immutable received a Wells notice from the SEC yesterday. They said that they are well capitalized with a large war chest to build for the future of gaming. And if needed, we will stand up and fight to defend digital ownership for gamers. People are not too happy about that, but maybe inevitable under the current regulation. Next, modular blockchain project Elixir announces mainnet launch is live. That's interesting to know. Memeland announces 1 year after the meme token, it is time for the pain token. This is something I thought was on the horizon. I didn't know when it was coming. Looks like they've got a second token coming out. And the big graphic there showing this on screen. Remember, we're live on X, live on video too. Memeland with a Binance logo. People like to see that. Largest holder of Bitcoin sells $3 million worth of tokens in 3 minutes. It crashed the chart by 60%. And a few more other bits of news from around the space. Pudgy Penguins partner with Mythical Games to release Pudgy Party, which will be a mobile game going live in 2025. And then Van Eck announced their second Web3 gaming investment, Gunzilla Games, which is who are the creators of that Xbox game that's been going viral on AVAX, called Off the Grid. And then finally, interesting on the airdrop front, Zerka announces 2% of the ZRC tokens will be fair dropped to Eigen holders. I think we'll see more of that moving forward, where people want to try to target specific communities. If you're holding one token, you'll get access to another token in that way. So that's the Web3 roundup. Legendary, before we get into the headlines, anything catching your attention there from the stories around the space?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, the last one, Circuit, with that token fair drop announcement. Love the word on that. It's not the first time that we've seen that, and I'm actually absolutely not surprised to see that playbook. We know that from TIA and from the TIA staking to get a couple airdrops going. I didn't have a look at my allocation yet. I also don't think that this will be the last one that Eigen holders, Eigen stakers will be getting. But we also know how this story did play out in the long run for TIA. So obviously the hope is, even if that is a good airdrop, that people just won't FOMO in and just buy a massive amount of eigen, pump up the price, and then dump it if the next airdrop is disappointing for them. So it's kind of always a bit of a two-edged sword, and also sometimes it's out of the control of eigen in that case even, right? I mean, there might be a partnership behind that, there might not be a partnership behind that, but you can't really control who's gonna use the data of looking at holder, looking at the stakers, and just airdrop to them. You just can't control that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think that's a good point in general for this type of principle, where especially when there's not an announced snapshot. In this particular case, I saw the details, and Zerkit actually said the snapshot's already been taken. It's something that's happened in the past. So if you were a holder, you'd have to double check the details and correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was like October the 8th. If you were a holder of eigen at that point in time, you would have been included in the snapshot. So no immediate concern about the eigen price running up in order to get hold of this airdrop, and then it kind of going down as soon as people get the airdrop. But in principle, that would be something that would be on people's minds, I guess. So that's worth thinking about. Excellent. Okay. Let's get into the first headline. Remember, we've got the big conversation with CEO of Nefinity Labs and head of Web3 at Michelin, FOMO Boys, coming on the half hour, and Julie, who's leading Web3 strategy internally at Michelin as well. Really want to dive into what their thoughts are on their project and how they're approaching the corporate strategy as it goes to Web3 in the next 6 to 12 months. So looking forward to that convo in a bit. Let's get through the headlines before we get there. Legendary. First things first, Tether. Absolutely colossal news coming out of Tether. Tether, $2.5 billion in profit in just the last quarter. Cumulative profits running up to 7.7 billion in the first 9 months of this year. What's the breakdown here? Why is this important? What are your thoughts?
It has to be so beautiful to be an investor in Tether. Just before we dive into those numbers, quick check with a stablecoin market cap, 172 bill, 70% Tether dominance. That means 120 bill out of the 172 are USDT. Next biggest player, obviously USDC with 34.4 bill. Looking at the post by Paolo Arduino, who is the CEO of Tether, is breaking down a bit more of those numbers, some of which you already touched on. I'm just going to go through some of them, not read out the whole post because it's way too long to do that. Most important headline figure, as you said, $2.4 billion as net profits for the third quarter. Then the massive exposure to US Treasuries, $102 billion. We put that in context a couple of times on the show, and Paolo is doing the same. That is more than Germany, that is more than Australia, that is more than even the UAE is holding in US Treasuries. So again, if Tether were a country, they would rank in the largest holders, in the largest even country holders of US Treasuries, which is pretty insane. Topped it off with $6 billion in excess reserves that they have. Market cap for stables did grow. That obviously means that Tether's market cap did grow as well by 30%. We had it a couple times in the snapshot when basically we had the little news that another billion of Tether has been minted on some chain overnight, and it has become quite common to see that. Two more interesting facts I want to pick out. One is the 330 million of on-chain wallets and accounts ever receiving USDT. And the other fact that I want to quickly touch on, because it connects to yesterday's conversation that we had on the show, where you kind of put the question, is it actually a good beta play if you want to get stablecoin exposure to kind of sell your ETH and go for the Coinbase stock? And obviously by that, not taking the bet on Tether, but taking the bet on USDC. And that's an interesting chart. If you look by stablecoin dominance, not by the players, but by the chains, you can still see that 48% of stablecoins live on ETH. Obviously, there's also Arbitrum, Base, and other L2s that are still part of the ETH ecosystem. And then the other green huge chunk that I'm sharing on screen, 35%, that's almost $61 billion of stablecoins, which live on Tron. So kind of interesting to not look at it only by Tether's dominance versus USDC, but also look on which chains those stablecoins are actually living and being used.
I think that's a really, really good point, because yes, people are equating a bet on Coinbase as an alternative bet on ETH if you want to express the bet that stablecoins go up moving forward. But as you say, a really huge proportion of stablecoins live on Tron, which clearly is not related to ETH in some way. They have their own token, they have their own ecosystem. And that bet, I guess, would be expressed in a slightly different way. And USDT versus USDC is not as much. I mean, I think in the end, both of these things move up in tandem. And even when new stablecoins, because a bet on stablecoins moving forward is not just a bet on USDC, it's a bet on PayPal introducing a new stablecoin, PYUSD, who are going to launch. Well, I think who are currently launched on Solana. I'm not sure if they're ETH. They were definitely juicing rewards on Solana, where you can still to this day get 10% APY on stable coins provided in Camino on Solana, whereas they're not juicing it on ETH. So it's definitely not as obvious as it would have been before, I think, to bet on an increase in to bet on Coinbase as a version of a bet on ETH. I agree with that. Interesting stuff. I think that's a really interesting conversation to have. We want to talk about the next headline, which is Bitcoin rollup Citrea aiming to make Bitcoin a programmable asset with ZK proofs. They raised $40 million Series A. The goal of this is to allow greater utility on the Bitcoin blockchain. It's being described as one of the almost an issue of existential importance, according to Citrea. The reason why this is important, if you remember Bread's segment on Monday, is because BTC has this issue where in order for it to stay secure, it either needs to increase its usage and generate fees, or get rid of the hard cap and have an inflationary supply. Lots of people gave reasonable feedback on that, which is, look, this is not an issue in the next year. It's not an issue in the next 2 years, not an issue maybe even in the next 5 to 10 years. But eventually at some point, much further down the line, those two scenarios, one of those two things are probably going to need to happen. And this is an attempt at the former. It's an attempt to increase its usage, generate more fees by making smart contract activities take place on Bitcoin. And I think we'll see more attempts to do that. I'm actually looking at opportunities to participate in that a bit more as well. So just a bit more context on this one in particular. This is a $40 million raise led by Peter Thiel's Founders Fund and included contributions from angel investors like Eric Voorhees and Balaji, according to announcements shared with CoinDesk yesterday. Citrea raised $2.7 million of seed funding in a Galaxy-led round in February. And it uses the BitVM computing paradigm that's designed to allow Ethereum-style smart contracts on Bitcoin. They're not the only people who are exploring this. The use of intermediaries to expand Bitcoin's utility is being explored by projects like Layer 2 Bob as well, which aims to create bridges to other networks like ETH for the execution of transactions that are ultimately anchored on Bitcoin, but that you can kind of have some functionality with EVM wallets as well. So I think ultimately my take on this would be that it's a necessary investment for the Bitcoin ecosystem to explore, but I wonder how many man hours and years they are behind ETH and Solana now when it comes to developing a DeFi and smart contract layer. So I also have a bit of a suspicion, this is something I've articulated on the show before, that Bitcoin DeFi could end up happening on ETH with solutions like Wrapped Bitcoin by Coinbase, who may dominate the distribution and offer interesting yield on such a product. So I still think that's a reasonable outcome, but would be keen for your thoughts, Legendary.
Yeah, very, very great summary of the piece of news. Well, the first time I read it, I had to chuckle actually because of the term that Orkun, the founder, was using in announcing that post and talking about launching Citrea Origins, a one-of-a-kind incubator to accelerate hyper-Bitcoinization. What a beautiful word that is, the hyper-Bitcoinization. But it's a very fair point. As you said, it connects to the conversation we had with Brett and to building other use cases. And in that post, he's beautifully pointing out that Bitcoin's current adoption path forces users to either hold BTC as a passive store of value or rely on intermediaries to access broader financial activities. And this is something they're trying to solve for. As you say, massive undertaking. Other blockchains have more devs and man hours put into facilitating exactly that. So it will be an interesting game of catch up to see that play out.
Like it. Of course, we have to go to our Bitcoin resident Funky to give a final take on this before we hit the final headline before the interview today. Funky, what's your take? People obviously trying to invest further into making Bitcoin a more active programmable asset. What are your thoughts? I can't hear Funky, Legendary. Can you?
I can hear him.
Okay,
No,
go ahead.
I can hear. I'm going to take it from there. Yeah, that's a fantastic point to include AI in the thinking and have that as a potential to speed up things on the dev side. The only counter take to that, or not even a counter take, the only thing that I would add to that is that it's a tooling system that becomes available to the other blockchains as well. But that's definitely going to be a main thing in speeding up, accelerating those development paths. Look, we have to get into the interview section. We have one more headline to cover. I'm going to be doing this one pretty quickly. I think it's an interesting one. It's the founder of Time.Fun who made a long post saying that after careful consideration, he, along with the team, have decided to move their platform, Time.Fun, which is basically a protocol that allows you to monetize your time in a way, move that away from Base, move it to Solana. Made a long point saying that's not a decision against Base, still bullish on Base as the most interesting L2 to build on ETH. However, it's more of a decision to do with that he's worried about the fragmentation on ETH. He's worried about the path where ETH is headed, and that the vibes on ETH versus Solana couldn't be more different. Solana, the post is saying, encapsulates what the real world is like: degen speculators, your average person; ETH, the bunch of philosophers, as Bichik said in the intro, looking down on the average person. And apart from that, really making that point that the fragmentation of ETH is worrying, whereas Solana, pretty straightforward, L1 is just working straight away. One perspective that I wanted to add from this to that is that Jesse Pollack from Base has obviously replied to that with a very long point saying that he's respecting the team, respecting the decision, et cetera. However, the key thing there is, from Jesse's perspective, the cultural differences that he sees obviously from the other way around, and saying for folks who love building on Base, I find they generally strongly prioritize doing the right thing, even if it's hard, putting the team over the individual, working hard, pushing boundaries with creativity, and staying optimistic. And also adding basically that it is still day one for Base and that he sees a bright future ahead. But it's interesting to see that this is becoming more of a cultural thing, even not only the worries about the roadmap, but more like of a demographic thing, and just to approach it from the line of thought, which blockchain's culture and audience fits best with what you're trying to build, which on the positive side also speaks to how far we've come with Web3 and blockchain, that we now even have the opportunity to think about stuff like this. Like a couple of years ago, you just build on ETH or maybe like on another small blockchain, and that was it. And now you can think about the best cultural fit for your product.
Yeah, look, I think two things on this, and this is where we'll leave it because we want to get into the interview. One, I think that there is something going on ETH, which means that Solana is significantly more attractive to a lot of different types of builders at the moment. The reason being, and this is more a practical point, is I give this example of me personally when I'm in London at the moment. If I want to build something, if I want to connect with people, if I want to get some support, if I want to try to brainstorm with people, where do I go? I don't know where to go for ETH. I've been here for years. I don't know where to go. If I want to figure out and connect to people in Solana, there's an event every Friday in a particular place. I know the people, I know where to go, and I can start mixing around. I think that feeling is what is missing for ETH at the moment. And maybe that's a consequence of decentralization, right? It's a consequence of decentralization where you're going to be a little bit less looked after in some respect, and that's one of the trade-offs. Having said that, I'm a big believer in the concept. It doesn't, whether it's to do with chains, whether it's to do with anything else, big believer in the concept that no chain itself is going to save you. And I think that there are various founders, and this is not specifically talking about Time.Fun actually, because I haven't tested their product. There are various founders that just hop between chains, claiming that the next chain is going to be the solution. In the end, your product is going to be the solution, and it doesn't matter what chain you're on. Sure, there are things that they can do to help you incentivize, and the best example of this is Blast. People who are building on Blast had this amazing incentive where the gold that was being used to incentivize users was huge. They actually brought huge numbers of people to your products. They literally brought them to your door. And then the job for you as the product builder is to keep them at the door. Like, they did the hard part for you. And I think asking for anything more than that is outrageous, to be honest. And I think that people should maybe take a little bit more responsibility for that. Again, that's not a point about Time.Fun. I don't know their product closely enough, but I think ultimately the product can win anywhere. And that would be my final point on that. Legendary, a final thought before we head into this interview?
Only that I fully agree with you, and let's get into the interview section.
Let's do it. Cannot wait. Look, this is an interview we've been looking forward to for quite some time. Today we have FOMO Boys, who is the CEO of Affinity Labs, an all-in-one agency to advise Web3 companies. He's the head of Web3 at Michelin. We also have Julie with us from Michelin. She's the head of social media, who's leading the project internally from Michelin. Of course, if you do not know, Michelin is renowned worldwide for its high-quality ties and prestigious Michelin guide. It has been setting industry standards in mobility and culinary excellence for over a century. Legendary, when we first spoke about this, you had a nice little story that people might not be aware of on Michelin.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I'm a big fan of the company as someone who loves fine dining, as someone who also loves interesting marketing stories, and just the origin story of that. I find that so beautiful. When Michelin was founded in 1889 in Clermont-Ferrand, as a tire company, there weren't a lot of cars back then, right? And we had these projections that nobody in the world is going to need cars. I think only in France there's been like a couple thousand cars back at the time, and they were thinking, what can we do to get people to use those damn things and move around? Because if they move around, they use the tires. If they use the tires, we have a better business, we can sell them. So they came up with this idea to do the guide, which then evolved to be the Michelin guide with the 3 stars. Didn't start out as a 3-star guide, but the categorization of that, I loved it so much that you have basically the 1-star saying it's worth a stop, the 2 stars saying it's worth to take a little detour for that, and the 3 stars telling you just do the trip. It's really worth to plan for that. And thinking about this as a marketing concept where you go back in history, you have a completely new market. The world's convinced that there's not going to be a need for cars. The economists back then were thinking there's not that many drivers because nobody was thinking that you would drive your own car. So for that reason, it's going to be such a little like upscale use case for that. And flipping it and being like connecting something as unemotional as a tire, which is just a utility to a luxury product back then, to having an emotional experience with fine dining, which I love. Actually got a Michelin dinner booked tonight again in Vienna, is a very, very beautiful marketing story. It's a use case of like storytelling and emotional marketing that I like to kind of tell a lot. So that reason I was pretty excited even back then when I saw Michelin coming into the Web3 space, and FOMO Boys and I had like long chats back then. So quite excited for this interview today.
Absolutely. A bit more context as well. That's an amazing story. In Web3, Michelin decided to lean into their heritage, focusing on VIP race events and fine food experiences in Michelin-star restaurants. They launched and sold 2,400 NFTs last year. They now trade at 0.11 ETH. I think after minting out at about 0.04, 0.05, after running up as high as 0.3 ETH in around December of 2023. The Michelin team have delivered VIP MotoGP experiences, fine dining at Michelin-star restaurants, tours of their headquarters in their France and more, and are now planning their next stages in Web3. In this conversation, we will discuss with FOMO Boys and Julie how he landed Michelin as a client, Michelin Web3's activation so far, including the successes and challenges, and what Michelin plan to do to take things forward in the next level in the next 6 to 12 months. FOMO Boys, Julie, welcome to the show. Great to have you with us finally. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be with the 3 of you this morning.
Jam guys, always a pleasure to see you. Been a while, so super excited for this one. And that
Great
was
to have you with us, man. Great to have both of you with us.
Oh, sorry. But I was saying, like, that was a nice intro. Like, you guys know Michelin better than me now.
Absolutely.
We've got the history. Talking of history, let's start with some of the history before we get into like your latest plans, because I think this is super interesting. FOMO boy, starting with you, I want to ask how you got into Web3 and how did you land Michelin as a client? Like Michelin, as Legendary just described, is one of the most historic brands around, really. What did you do to kind of land them as one of your clients?
For sure. How did I start Web3? I think like a normal way, like someone talked to me about Ethereum when it was like $48 back in the day. Of course, I bought it to buy other shitty stuff that died since then. But that's how I got started. And then like opened the agency in 2021. Then we started to work with brands like Black Paris and Vitality Sport Team, that is a French, very famous sport team. And I would say it's more like word of mouth. At some point, like I got in touch with another agency that was also working on Michelin, and so we started working with them like at the very early stage of the project. I think maybe 1 month after they started it, and then like we took over on strategy, marketing, communication, and stuff. And since then, we're helping them managing the project pretty much.
Got a follow-up question for you on that. Just from a creator perspective, there's so many people in this space who are trying to either connect with big brands, but also like trying to make an effort to touch base with Web2 brands, with brands who are outside of the space, and kind of get them into Web3, onboard them, or even open a conversational door with them. How did you go about that with an international company like Michelin?
I think they already had the vision of they wanted to do a Web3 project, and they already knew they wanted to do an NFT collection and all. I think it was more of helping them understand what they could do, leveraging their internal like services or products. So building pretty much like the roadmap. And then like it's a lot of education, I would say, because of course you are not talking to Web3 like aficionados, and it's like corporate. So education, and then you as an agency, you have to adapt also in a way that everything is slower than a Web3 project where, you just like go boom and deliver, because there is no decision layers and stuff. But, it's all good because at the end, like it's a big corpo making the move. So for them, it's risky also. But I think it's good to see like big actors like that coming to the space. And so I think, we just like started building, and at the end, like we know how to work together now. I think, you just have time to adapt the processes and adapt like how you deliver stuff, and also maybe educate the community about it, because everyone has super huge expectation in Web3. Everyone wants everything super fast, and so you just have to educate also the community about the fact that it's like a corpo. They are here to stay, so you are in a stable long-term project, but they need to understand like we will deliver like probably way more value than a lot of other projects, but it will take more time to set up things.
And probably that education goes both ways, right? You also have to educate the Web2 company about the expectations and pace that Web3 has, or like also the lines of thinking. And you mentioned this difference, working with a Web2 company in terms of the pace. Are there like some other differences or cultural differences when it came to working with a more corporate client, to put it in that way?
Yeah, definitely. So like the pace definitely is different, and then you get a lot of like legal issues because it's pretty blurry depending on the countries, like the legislation around like crypto and blockchain and stuff. And so you have to pretty much like you build up and you go with an idea, and then at some point maybe you want to deliver the idea, and like the legal team will say like, oh, finally like we can do this. So I would say like legal stuff, the IP also of like the Michelin Man is really like protected and stuff. It was already like crazy that we had a collection where we could like put assets on the Michelin Man. I think that was a first, a very first, so IP, processes, and legal, I think are the three like main pain point, I would say. And then of course, like you have all the benefits, which are like you have a corpo with you, the name is worldwide famous, you have like proper budget and stuff, and so it's a bit of a more serious scale project, but it has like pros and cons.
Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely slower moving, I guess, and setting expectations is probably quite helpful. Julie, you've been leading internally at Michelin from the summer, I believe. How did you get involved in the project, and what's it been like on your side? FOMO Boy is speaking about it from his side. What's it been like from your side, bridging the corporate giant with the Web3 ethos?
So yeah, like you said, actually, I jumped into the project like since this summer. But funny story, actually, I started to have a foot in the Web3 environment like since February, March 2024, because I was at the WoW Gala during NFT Paris. So that was like the beginning of the story for me with the Web3 environment and universe. And I already enjoyed it. So as soon as I had the opportunity to really working into the project, it was really a blast for me because I was like, let's go, let's see what's happening, and let's keep building something really interesting for the company into this Web3 universe. So yeah, and you were asking, so how is it internally? FOMO Boys told
like
a little bit about it. Like,
in what way? What's the kind of when you're trying to bridge the expectations from the Web3 community and marry that with the corporate ethos and the corporate perspective and the corporate objectives? How's that been for you?
it's quite challenging. It's quite challenging. And like you were saying a little bit earlier, it's all about educational, like spreading the word about, okay, this is what's happening in the Web3. This is how it works. So we need to adapt. We need to be more agile on certain things. And at the same time, is also trying to make the community understand that we are still Web2 corporation. So not everything is as fast as you are used to on your daily life into the Web3.
That makes sense. I mean, Thomas, FOMO Boys mentioned that the brand is something that's very protected, right? Very protected, something that already inspires a particular feeling. It makes people think of luxury, exclusivity. How do you try to translate that to the Web3 experience? Like, you have this in real life exclusivity, in real life luxury brand. How do you translate that?
I would say a part is through our new platform, the Michelin Explorer Club platform, where we try to highlight our universe through gamification, so you can see digitally what's happening around the brand, around the experiences around motorsport, around the guide, around the whole Michelin universe, and at the same time say today we are connecting with you guys on the digital aspect, but the little plus that we have is, like you were saying, we can provide you real life experiences, the ones that you will remember for the rest of your life. Like Legendary was talking about, like he enjoy heading to the best restaurants. So it's kind of like lifetime memories.
I like it. You mentioned, I've got 2 follow-up questions here on product, then I think Legendary I'll have a few. One, FOMO Boys, Julie was speaking about like super highlights there. What's been maybe the best highlight for you, the best story of what you've delivered over the last year? Because you've been kind of with the project since the beginning. And then the second question is, you're kind of in this unique position where I don't know who your competitors are. Do you see your competitors as Web3 clubs, like Web3 exclusive clubs, or are your competitors more traditional companies who are offering real life experiences? How do you even think about that?
So that's a good question. For the highlights, honestly, like overall, the experience has been like amazing in a way that we've successfully built a community that we've worked on many different projects, and I've seen many different communities. And I think it's the first time we have a community where people are not here to flip or to like generate like money. They're here because they love Michelin and they want to experience like one a lifetime experience, or like money can buy experiences, you know. And so we do have like, I don't have the precise percent, but I would say like at least 20-30% of like original minters are still here and never sold. So that's pretty good, even if it went pretty high at some point. So that's a good sign. And so we have a pretty like tight community. Then I was pretty excited, like, because the whole year, like we were able to deliver like those unique experiences. And so I think that MotoGP like and stuff like that. It's not like just a regular ticket that you get. It's literally like you do an helicopter tour, you're in the paddock, you go, you meet the team, the pilots and stuff, you take a photo like with the Michelin man. So there is like the whole experience around it, and it's really like top notch what we provide. And so I think just that, like having the feedback from our holders about it, I think is really, really cool to see and to experience. We had like the WoW Gala in Paris that was also amazing. And like 2 weeks ago, we dropped like a partnership with Yuga Labs for Ape Fest. And so I think that was like sort of for me like the best moment in a way that I'm an ape also, and I've been working on the partnership since February. So when it happened, I was like, that's insane and that's pretty cool. So we had like the VIP dinner with you again, stuff that was taken care of by Michelin. So I would say like that's my highlight. And then like the second question, can you?
Yeah, the second question about competitors, because I was thinking about this when I was preparing. I was like, you can offer things that no one in this space can offer, but there is such thing as like Web3 exclusive clubs, and people have managed to create that brand as well. So do you have competitors? Who do you think about as your competitors?
Honestly, like I never think really about competition in a way that either like it's a potential partner, either it's just like another project. But for me, it's not like really a competition in a way that like there is nothing like we're not fighting against anything, you know. So and even like we're, I would say, not in a niche, you know, whether we're a corpo. So I would say the other like project that could be interesting to look at on our standpoint as a brand is other brands projects, you know. I would think like Porsche, Adidas, Alpine, you know, all those big names, Lacoste and stuff. And so I'm pretty happy of where we are at right now compared to other corpo that made their way into Web3. Probably because for each other brand is different reason, but sometimes it's like not good timing. Sometimes it's didn't understand like the Web3 culture or ways to do things, and so like or price and stuff. So for different reasons, like there is a lot of Web2 brands that try to make the move, and I will never criticize because I think it's important for them to come, and it's bold to try already. They were early, but a lot of them like are not surviving or are not doing well because, you know, and with Michelin we were able to build up everything because I think we were lucky that they trust like a so big corporate trust a small agency like ours that is like from the space, you know. And so I think that changed a bit the dynamic. So not really competition, just you know, just like looking around what they do and stuff and try to just deliver like the best we can, you know.
I think that makes sense actually. The ability to partner with the people who you think are best matched with you is probably the most beneficial way to look at it. Got a funny comment from Sammy in the YouTube comments here. You know Sammy well, he works with us a lot, saying, wow, the gala was great. The whiskey experience was the next level. There was multiple times where I was entering all of the raffles and Sammy was winning all of them. Like I had more NFTs than him.
Stuff, bro. Like I think you went like to a couple experiences, bro.
He went everywhere. He honestly went everywhere. I went to none. This is a serious question for you guys. Comes out of this actually. Obviously, a lot of your events are exclusive IRL, but you have many global holders, and this is the same thing that lots of Web3 companies experience, right? So, how are you thinking about the challenge of supporting and meeting the requests and demands and wishes of a global audience and community when a lot of your stuff is exclusive IRL? Julie, maybe you're best placed for that.
Like you're saying, that's a big challenges around this. We have a lot of people supporting us all around the world, and it's really something that we want to dive in 2025. It's really finding ways to be present, like geographically, in everywhere. And the strongest aspect that we have is as a Web2 global company, we has this possibility in a certain way because Michelin is present all around the world, and some of the events that we are partnership with or organizing, it's everywhere. So we will figure it out how we can leverage that and being able to provide more globally and more worldwide IRLs event.
Yeah, like if I can add to that, at the very beginning, what we've done is like we've pretty much went through form that we throw on Discord to get to know our community and where they were based and stuff, because like as for metrics and analytics, you don't get much data if they don't like provide it, you know. And so back in the day when we started, I think we had like top 1 was US, top 2 was Hong Kong, top 3 was Germany, then 4 was Poland, and then 5 was France. And so knowing that like we could just like for the whole year, because Michelin is partner with 137 races and has like there is star restaurant worldwide, hotels worldwide, so a bunch of stuff. And so we just had to pretty much like try to have giveaways with experiences like just on the different like time zone and different space like worldwide to just like touch the whole community. And then I would say it's a mix between providing unique experiences that are like in small supply, and so that will only unfortunately like touch a few community members, and then having wider giveaways with smaller prizes, I would say, but like with Michelin toys, you know, like plushies, I don't know, but different stuff like that, where we could make like 200 winners and just send it over worldwide. And so like, I think we touched a good part of the community in not even a year. We're also lucky we have a small community. It's like 1,000 holders. So it's not that much, you know, for a big corpo like to provide experiences too. So I think now most of our communities, like either we've met them, either they came to an event. So it's pretty cool also.
A quick, not really follow-up question, but a synthesizing question, because we spoke about challenges, we spoke about cultural differences. And one thing that I've been thinking about is you come from the Web3 space, you go to a company, to a corporate company that is stock traded, that has a share price that obviously the board is looking at, but they're not obsessed with it to stare at it all the day. And then in contrast, you have a Web3 community who loves staring at charts, who loves staring at NFT prices, at floor prices. So how did you approach that challenge? Like both to kind of convey it, the question definitely for you, Fomo, was to a Web2 company, essentially, that we have this obsession with looking at floor prices. And how have you been thinking about the floor price aspect going forward? Is it something that basically became less and less important? And how did you deal with this challenge specifically?
That's a very good question. I think it's really about converting like your view of like the floor price to the view of a corpo and what they expect from the project, you know. So to translate that, it's pretty hard. Sorry, but I'm a bit tired from Halloween, but pretty much I'm losing it. But shit, can you put me back in the question? Sorry.
Yeah, no, basically, how did you educate, to put it simply, Michelin, about the fact that we are obsessing about floor prices, and that's not something that maybe a corporate company is used to when it comes to their stock price?
So as an agency, like for us, of course, like the goal is to raise the floor price in a way that we know that in Web3 and especially in an NFT collection, like the highest value you can bring to your holders is like a high floor price, you know, that's a fact. And that's the only benefit the whole community will have is like a high floor price, you know. So for us, it makes sense that it's, you know, your target as an agency, but for a corpo, you cannot really tell them like, we need to raise the floor price, you know. It's more like we need to communicate, we need to do more marketing activations, we need to provide more utility to the holders and stuff. So pretty much set up the whole thing that would make the floor price go up. We were pretty lucky with floor price though, like we never went under min price. We are still up in Ethereum, but even though like Ethereum went up, so we minted for like in USDT $70. And I think right now, like we're probably like 260 or so, I think. So it's still like, you know, up, and we've never been down. So we have a pretty strong community. I think like since it's a small supply plus a corpo, plus there is not a lot of listed NFTs, it can go up pretty fast, I would say. So I'm pretty like confident in the fact that we will go up first if there is an NFT season. And even though there is not, I think with what we plan in 2025, I think naturally we'll go up because we haven't even really stacking, for example, you know. So I think just like stacking with like, of course, benefits for staking would just reduce even the listing. And already like we have a 1% listed, I think. So, you know, I think overall it's to raise, like to grow, but we're focusing on delivering, and then like the floor price should follow, I would say.
Yeah, that's a very fair point. And you mentioned the thing talking about 2025. Julie, want to go to you and ask you how you've been thinking about the strategy for the next 6 to 12 months from Michelin's perspective, especially in an environment where a lot of corporates came in, tried something in Web3, left. So how are you positioning yourselves for the next year?
Yeah, there's a lot in our head. Like we have so many ideas for the next years, and one key thing is that we're here to stay, and we are really focusing. Like you were talking about, the floor price and everything. Yes, it's really important, but at the same time, what we want to focus is the quality of our community. Like they're here, they're engaged, they love the brand, and we want to be there for them too. So it's many things that are feeding us into what will be next for the 6 or 12 months ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's really exciting. I think for sure getting that commitment. And I remember actually being on one of the first Michelin spaces when I first met FOMO Boys, to have that corporate commitment to being around and then actually seeing that that's followed through. I think that gives people a lot of confidence and trust in a space where sometimes that's not actually easy to come by. But guys, we're drawing to a close here. We've only got a couple minutes left. FOMO Boys, maybe you come to you here. Is there anything else to add? Anything else you'd like to share? You mentioned having a lot of ideas in your head at the moment. Is there anything that you can share with us? I'm showing your Twitter account for the people who are watching in today. What can we expect coming up?
So that's a very good question. We are currently in the phase, and that's also different from Web3 project, is like Web2 and especially corpos, they work on a yearly budget and also a yearly vision. So we are currently in the phase where we are working with Julie and we are pretty much building the deck to present the 2025 vision to them with all our different ideas. And then they will pretty much pick and choose what is doable, what's not and stuff. I would say that overall, what I wish, because for now nothing is validated and that's just idea, is more presence from Michelin through IRL events. We've done a couple ones, but I want maybe to have a stronger presence worldwide more often because I think I do all events and I think that's literally a key point for a project to be really present out there and on board people real life. So I want this. We're also trying to get lifetime perks from Michelin, that takes time, and that was already part of the plan since the very beginning, but those are stuff that takes a long time internally because it changed a lot of logistic stuff and shit. So just working on this and then keep delivering crazy experiences to the holders, that's a fact. And then I would say maybe improve the platform, that's a V1. We'll have more features, we'll have hopefully staking at some point and stuff. And so through the platform, one of our targets is also to onboard the masses, because on the platform now you can mint Michelin passport, and that is for Web2 people. So it's it's like a Pope. So you mint it with an email address. You don't have to create a wallet and stuff, and then you can participate in the gamified experience. And we will literally put a QR code and stuff like that to onboard people in more for races, in maybe some restaurant and stuff. So over time, we also want to grow the community, keeping the privilege and the perks for the holders, but also onboarding Web2, following Michelin in Web3. So that's also one of our key focus.
Sounds exciting. Very, very big plans. You had me with lifetime rewards. That sounds pretty good to me. Julie, are you going to approve these ideas from FOMO Boys? When can we expect them to start happening?
So like you were saying, it's a full brainstorming, and they have so many ideas. It's exceptional. We are heading to really good ones. And when all of that could be visible, starting next year.
Amazing. Guys, that's been a really interesting conversation. It's been really nice to have you with us. Thanks so much for joining. We'll have to do it again when you are able to reveal and once you've decided on some of those things. So thanks so much for joining us, Julie and FOMO Boys. You can follow the account at Michelin Explore and FOMO Boys on Twitter as well. As always, guys, we do this every single day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern time for 1 hour. We're live on X Spaces, X Video, YouTube, and you can catch up with us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts too. That's us for the week. Have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you on the other side. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.